right, we're back. It's been a long time.
Life happens, man.
3 weeks, I think, actually.
That's an eternity in soccer podcasting recording schedules.
Indeed. Life happened for us and for Rayo OKC. So, just a preface. As always, Porter Cunningham co-hosted on this special edition of the Scissortail podcast by my good friend Will Bowerstocks and our compatriot and colleague Alan Chapman.
Alan Tobias Chapman.
Oh, so we're going public with that now?
Oh no!
We can always edit that out later.
Going public with what?
Exactly. So
I would just like the record to reflect that I am currently wearing my Borussia Dortmund scarf as a symbol to myself and to the public that A, Rayo OKC is not my one shot at being a soccer fan, and B, bad financial situations can turn into outrageous success stories.
Okay. Duly noted.
Duly noted. And also, this, just as a point of fact, this scarf was given to me, or I traded for it with a former member of the Red Army who has now, I believe, become an Energy fan.
Well, we'll get to that later as well.
Which is going to make us sending him our podcast MP3s to upload to radio contentious moving forward.
Yes.
Anyway, let the record reflect that I'm wearing a Dortmund scarf.
So reflected. We're going off the rails with this episode because so much has happened since the last time we recorded, and feelings are different, emotions are running high, confusion is in the air.
The fog of war is still thick.
The fog of war. What the fog is going on? So let's quickly just recap. Since the last time we recorded, Rayo OKC went to the New York Cosmos and managed a 1-1 draw
thus
in that
breaking
game.
a home unbeaten streak for the Cosmos.
A home win streak, I think you would say, right?
Yes.
So I think we all thought that was a good result, especially for a Gerard Noose coach team that he had been with the team less than 24 hours at that point, I think. And then last week, the team traveled to Indianapolis, Indiana, and had a 2-1 loss as a result there. So were you able to watch that game? What did you think about that? Anything?
I think it was a pretty ugly game because of the weather, but they didn't play poorly. Well, it was your classic Rayo OKC story where they got up early 1-0 and then ended up giving up a long... I mean, Indy is the better team, right? But then just gave up like a late equalizer and then an equalizer right before half, which is, again, classic. They do that. And then a late winner to see the effort result in a loss.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It was not... I mean, I thought they played okay, but it was just like really rainy and windy.
I would have loved to have 3 points, 2 or 3 points from those 2 road games. Not happy with the point, especially considering where the team was before then. And then, obviously, last night, home game against the Miami FC.
Get ahead early.
Different coach, same story.
Get ahead early.
Yep.
Give up a late equalizer.
Yep.
Give up an even later winner.
Yep. So I think that
I've seen
narrative.
This movie before.
Yeah. Alan and I were in the press box, and we were joined by James Foling, the new soccer beat writer for the Oklahoman, and he made a comment about this game is going to run close to my deadline for getting the story in. So I hope that it goes one way or another so that I can get my story in. And I said, James, if I know one thing about this team, it's do not put the last period on your story until the final whistle blows, because they are notorious for most of the time giving up an equalizer or a late game winner, and every now and then scoring an equalizer. I guess at least one time so far this season, scoring a very late equalizer. So, general thoughts about... Let's do this first, since we're just going to be rambling here, and this is going to be probably just one long segment.
I'll throw some Morocco beats in there.
Okay, we'll try to break when we can. What do you guys think about this Gerard News coach team tactically, the results? Anything?
Alan, anything?
The results are fairly similar, like you said. Starting Samaras, they've talked about it being more attacking, more attractive, but it's still, the team's still relatively new, obviously, like we've talked about. But it's only been a few games. Bringing on Samaras is great. He's full of energy. But you can't remold the team. It's not like you went to the first training session and went, hey guys, we should probably try and score more goals. And they all went, oh, that's a good idea. It never occurred to us. You're going to have to break what they've been trained in for the season so far. It's not an overnight thing.
Tactically speaking, I agree. Starting Samaras is obviously the biggest. Well, playing Samaras, in the last few games of Marcina's tenure, obviously is a big change. The late game substitutions, we've seen a little bit different tactic. One thing I noticed last night is playing a 4-4-2, but really almost looking like a 2-4-4 at times on the offensive, with the outside midfielders pushing up into winger roles, or almost even a central role. So if the ball is on the right side of the field, for instance, the left midfielder will push up into a centrally located forward role, and then the outside backs will push all the way upfield. All the way into the opposition's 18 to provide some width. So a little bit more attacking style. I think we've heard Noose say that he wants to play possession. Last night, I wouldn't call it playing possession at all. I think Miami actually had like 60-40 possession. So I don't know. A couple of things, but it's not like we're seeing Jurgen Klopp come in here and change things drastically. So
that would be awesome. I don't have too much to add. I've unfortunately been the weakest link to the podcast from the games that I've been able to watch. High level, the results are the same. So, I guess I don't really have a strong opinion. Changing the style of play, I guess I would rather win ugly than try to make a tactical change and still lose.
Yeah, if you're going to tell me you can score the goal that we scored last night early, and then an Alan Marcina team muddies up the midfield and parks the bus in front of the goal and wins 1-0 or ties 1-1, I'm obviously going to choose that result over yet another heartbreak, 2-1 loss at home.
Yep.
When this team was very look, I'm going to say it right now, this team's not making the playoffs. Not making the playoffs. This team was very much in the driver's seat for getting into the third or fourth postseason, whatever you want to call it, spot. But after last night's result, even with a front-loaded schedule, they're playing some quote-unquote easier teams the rest of the season. I don't think there's any way you can't put a new coach in like that and then have get 1 point out of the first three games, and then expect to turn it around from there. So
yeah, I don't disagree. I'm still holding on to a little bit of hope because of where they are on the table, they were able to kind of turn things around from the spring season. But it's unlikely to be, if we're objective. But I'm guessing that most people aren't listening to this to hear us talk about tactics for the next 30 minutes. So let's take a quick break. We'll recalibrate and talk about the real juicy stuff, which is all the off-the-field action that we've had an interesting window into. So we'll take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be back. We'll spill all the juicy secrets and tell you things you hadn't heard before. So stay tuned.
Okay, we're back. We are done with recaps. We are going to now get into a lot of different things, all centering around the shakeup, which by now, if you're listening, you probably think you know everything that's come out. This broke, 3 weeks ago?
right before the
Cosmos game. So
right
yeah,
before the Cosmos games.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks
Really
ago.
poorly timed from the standpoint of our recording schedule. You
Yeah.
would think they would at least
Giving us a heads up.
optimized for our schedule, and we had
Right.
a pinned tweet.
Yeah. And they made us totally destroy our recording schedule.
It's podcaster's life, bro. It's hard.
Yep. So, as we all know by now, complete shakeup within the organization of Rayo OKC. Marcina out.
Sold out strategies out.
Sold out strategies out.
Sean Jones.
Sean
kind of
Jones, yeah, out as governing
Member.
member.
Excellent recap exists in written format at 2yellowcards.com and Midfield Press.
Midfield Press, yeah.
Midfield Press.
Midfield Press by none other than Alan Chapman. He spent many hours making phone calls, researching Twitter, and penning a very good, flushed out blog piece with a little bit of editorial.
Alan.
European condescension.
European condescension.
The
Great way
best
to put
kind.
it.
Yeah, the best kind.
So you can find it all there. Right now, we're going to get into. We're just going to talk about it.
All right.
So before we came on pod, Alan, you asked the question: how do you guys feel about this? Where do we stand on this? And this being the whole situation with the club right now. So, Will, you want to get started?
Yeah, I think you gotta try and boil down. You have to boil away what your perspective or what narrative you want to buy into. And there's lots of narratives floating around, like there's the sold out strategies versus prodigal narrative. There's the NASL versus USL MLS narrative. There's the America versus Spain narrative. There's the new team that was still coming together that was playing poorly in the spring and maybe they're playing better now in the fall narrative. I think you got to just try to really go to the root of this and just say, is this good or bad for the team? Good or bad for soccer in Oklahoma City? And I think the answer is, for me, it's probably good, right? I'm not advocating, if you had asked me before, I wouldn't have said, if you had asked me before, should you push out sold out strategies and should you force the coach to resign, I probably would have said no. Mm-hmm. But I also don't think that things were going great before. From on field, they were going fine. I mean, they weren't exactly playing beautiful football, but they were getting results. And that's subjective, and that's subjective, right? Playing beautiful football. But you could see that commercially it was lacking, right? Commercially, from an advertisement standpoint and a sponsorship standpoint, getting people in the seat standpoint, but also something about I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but there's something about the club that wasn't fully all there from a buttoned up professional standpoint. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
let me jump in. Let me jump in there and provide a quick rebuttal, because I agree. We all had sat down, the three of us, both on pod and off pod, I think, and maybe if it wasn't on the record, it's going on the record now. We'd all said, why aren't they doing this? They being the previous front office. Why aren't they doing this? This is very amateur looking. Look at the way that other clubs in the league handle their social media presence, and look how they're out in the community. Look at what the Energy's doing. Look at these things that they could be doing that are free. Don't necessarily cost anything to get out and make a last, not necessarily promote the brand, but just be involved in the community. So we all said that there are things that they could do, and I think we all also talked about the fact that everyone in the front office came from professional sports management, but didn't necessarily have a background in soccer.
Right.
So they were taking a prepackaged product and attempting to transfer it to a soccer field, which worked to some level of success, but would never get over the last hump. So we had all had the discussion that in order for these partnerships with the community, with businesses in the community to grow, there would have to be changes made eventually. My rebuttal to your comment about this being good for soccer in Oklahoma City is, I don't think if they were incomplete in terms of their connection to the community and the way that they were doing things, the Rayo Vallecano management is has nothing.
Okay.
This is a European. If you just look at Vallecano, right? Don't if you look at them in a vacuum and look at their presence. I don't think that they're going to come in here with any knowledge about how to increase the brand or get out into the community or anything, and I don't think they're going to care.
So maybe the way I should have said that, and then I want Alan to jump in, but if things were going, if you go back to like pre-Cosmos game and things were just continuing to exist, the long-term future of Rayo OKC was always a question mark, right? Just because it was going okay and you never really knew. Well, post-shakeup, the long-term viability of Rayo OKC is still a question mark. I think what makes, when I say it's quote-unquote good, is I think making difficult decisions and doing things to correct flaws are done to make the long-term question mark more certain. So it might not work. It definitely hasn't been pretty. It's definitely been messy, but it might have been necessary. That's the angle that I'm approaching it from.
Okay. Alan, what's your
Well,
stance?
I think we've said all along, we had blog posts and podcasts earlier on, that the team stands and falls with the fans. This guy can own it, that guy can own it, but if you don't have a fan base, you don't have a team. How many shirts are they going to sell next year at the Thunder now that Kevin Durant's gone? That's an event. And I think I'm not a professional sports franchise manager.
Yeah.
But to me, as the condescending European, it looked like marketing an event. You don't have the 100 years of history. So you don't have the lifestyle. The reason, I had a friend of mine call me on Thursday, and he said, "So what do you know about soccer?" And I went, "Quite a bit." "Why?" "Well, my son just signed up for soccer, so I need to know everything about it, starting with how many people play." He knows nothing. That's
By the way,
community
cheers to your friend's son for
Yay!
strapping his boots on.
Go Raptors. It's a cultural difference. You don't have all the history, but for me, not a professional sports organizer, soccer doesn't work. What I told my friend was, it's the world's most popular game because you can play it with the cliche of jumpers for goalposts and get a ball of some description and kick it around. You don't need bats and gloves and pads and helmets and
Pucks and iced over surfaces.
The reason it's the world's most popular game is because if you can sellotape newspaper into some sort of ball, you can play. Maradona playing on the beach with a tennis
severed
ball.
human heads.
Exactly.
Newspapers.
Anything.
Leather filled with air.
Yes.
Plastic cans.
A goat's stomach.
Done. You must have been to East Belfast too.
So,
Because it's a cultural thing. And for me, marketing it as an event feels like the MLS. And maybe that's the way it works here. Not from here. Could be wrong. But have you seen a Pokemon?
no.
Well,
So it wasn't necessarily how I would have done it, but we talked about outreach into the community and what is developing on Twitter, the bastion of all truth and logic, is the
Scissortail pod.
Well, that's his elbow. That the Spanish have come in and ruined everything. And, kind of saying European, people are referring to them as the Spaniards, and who do they think they are? They're the majority owners, is who they are. You can dress it up how you like, but they own the club.
I don't want to digress. Like, nationalism is stupid. Especially, like, right now it's Olympics time, so everyone's like, go USA, go Spain. Like, it's such a stupid narrative to fall upon.
Yeah.
Oh, they're Spaniards, they're different than us. Therefore, they must be wrong.
And this parochial, small-town mentality does my head in. Well, they've come and they've ruined, and wait a minute. Is it worse? There were, according to the club, 1,251 people there last night. They've been averaging 4,500. So does that mean that 3,000 people, which is percent of that, weren't fans of the club? They were fans of the manager or the owner or their friend who worked there. Why did those 3,000 people not turn up? Because the Spaniards were mean to my friend, or the Spaniards have ruined everything, or this is the first home game. Was it really 3,000 people were there as a favour to a friend? So the actual fan base is only 1,200 people. That is a reflection. That's like getting a job in sales and hitting up all your friends.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what they did.
Activity for activity's sake.
Not a professional sports manager. But the fact that there were so many people not there, because it's been ruined, these people are terrible, blah, blah, whatever the reason is that's been floated on Twitter, that's not a good sign. That by definition means something was wrong. You didn't have 4,500 fans.
So let me
1,200.
Let me submit a rebuttal to that as well, which would be, I think a more realistic. I think yes, a percentage of people that didn't come are probably because they are unhappy with what happened, right? And so maybe they said, I'm not going to support that team anymore because of what happened. Great. I would submit that a more likely scenario was many people were getting their news about the game from the things that Sold Out Strategies was doing. So as much as we dog on their prepackaged delivery of a sports product, but we haven't seen any advertising, or heard any advertising since the majority owners came in and made the changes.
I think you're listening to it right now.
Yeah. Well, and combine that with so that's one good thing that Sold Out Strategies was doing. Here's one thing that surfaced last night is a lot of people were confused because the season tickets were printed as such. Did you know this? They actually said August 30th for the game last night instead of August 20th.
Facepalm.
So people were actually asking the question at the tailgate, I don't have a ticket for this game. Why are we here? How am I going to get in? And the answer was, no, you do. It just says August 30th instead of August 20th. So I would say combine those two things together, but
that's so bad.
My gut feeling is, and my another gut feeling, 1,251 is bodies through the turnstiles, right? So I would say that the crowd was the smallest that I've ever seen it there last night, but there have been other crowds that weren't that big either that they've reported as 3,500. So are they counting bodies through the turnstiles or tickets sold?
Right. By the way, maybe this is self-serving for me to say this, but like anybody that wants to come on to our podcast and tell us why we're wrong about anything we're saying, open invite.
Yeah.
Like, we're just three guys. Like, you can, objective, fan-based podcasts. So we're only going with what we see. We don't see the whole table. So if anybody's listening, and you feel really strongly that we're wrong, you have an invitation.
So the thing that I'll say for all of our friends, because they were friends that are no longer working for the club.
I miss you.
It feels like covering a whole new team. Honestly, the team, the players are the same. But I was telling Alan last night, we were walking around, we were in the press box, and I see all these people in Rayo OKC polos, and I'm like, who are these people? Where did they come from? I don't know them.
Would it be inappropriate to ask them for Rayo swag?
I mean,
was it inappropriate to ask the first time?
Is that another open invitation if you'd like to mail Will some?
Yes. We can be bought.
P.O. Box 1469, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
We're not against being bribed. But I miss those guys, and I'm worried about them. And I think the whole way it went down is unfair. Mm-hmm. But it was the nature of the agreement. So I don't really know personally. I mean, I still have a lot of questions about how I feel about it. I don't know I don't feel great about the longevity of this team.
No.
Based off of the rumors and the facts that we know about cost cutting. So, yeah.
Do you want this team to succeed? Yes, no.
In its current format, in its current structure, at this point, I don't know.
I want Oklahoma City FC to happen.
Right. So the problem is, and we've said this when we've gone on to other podcasts, when this partnership was announced, the discussion was there were two sides, right? One said, why are you allowing foreign money in? What's going to happen if they get relegated? This is bad for the league because they have no connection to the community. These were all very real arguments that came up, right? And our response, we were very opposite that, because without this, it wouldn't have happened. There would be no NASL team in Oklahoma City, right? But what I've seen is all of these what ifs are kind of materializing now. So I've kind of shifted my stance to it's professional sports, and not only that, but it's global professional sports, and it's the nature of the agreement. But I think I would support a majority locally owned team.
You know what I've been thinking about more and more is why, like the question, why Rayo Vallecano, why Oklahoma City, and it just for me, I keep thinking about what those meetings would have been like for the La Liga Board of Governors and then the NASL Board of Governors to like approve, like the two-step approval, right? Unless like it's a very, maybe it is extremely Machiavellian, right? Like the La Liga Board of Governors. I just can't imagine people who care about the game, knowing what we know now, thinking that it would be a good idea for Rayo Vallecano to come to the U.S. Like, imagine being, like, I don't know, like Barcelona is the wrong one to use. Like, maybe, like, I don't know, like Real Sociedad or like just a good team. And Rayo Vallecano.
Sevilla.
Yeah, Sevilla, great example. And their whole pitch is going to be like, we're going to, this is for La Liga and the U.S. Soccer Federation's technical partnership. We're going to go abroad. We're going to play the Spanish way. We're going to, like, potentially, like, find some players and bring them over, and like we're gonna like spread this model for y'all. But the counter pitch is like, why you? Like, you don't have an e-commerce store on your website. You have a bad stadium.
You right now, if people wanted to go to the Rayo Vallecano website and buy a Vallecano jersey and ship it to the United States, they can't.
Unless it's just a very Machiavellian board of governors where they're like, oh, you want to go to the U.S.? By all means, like you would be great. Like, you'll do a great job. In the meantime, like, we're going to run our club here and make sure that we don't get relegated.
Right.
And sorry, I'm thinking. I've also been thinking about, and this is meta. This doesn't really have anything to do with Rayo OKC, but like the television revenue that sporting team earns, it's a massive bubble. And it's going to pop. And there's, there are plenty of smart people that write about this, but just as a function of like unbundling subscription fees, at some point the bubble pops. But then maybe that's a point in favor of why you try to come to the U.S. in the first place. But I don't know.
I think your comment about the e-commerce store really hits the nail on the head. Why does Rayo Vallecano not have an e-commerce store? Legitimate question.
I can make you one in the click of like $5.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah.
I have a suggestion, because anybody that wants to buy a Rayo Vallecano shirt walks to the Rayo store and buys one, because their support is local and a century old. It's 5th generation. That they don't sell them online because all our fans live here and come to the game.
Right.
They're not Barcelona. They're not Real Madrid. They're not Manchester City. They're Bournemouth. They're West Ham. They're Leicester 3 years ago. that mindset versus the sports franchise mindset in America. Neither one, not saying one's right or one's wrong.
They're just different.
But the fact that they don't sell shirts online, because maybe they don't need to, because their 12,000 fans come every week and they all live within a path 4 of the stadium.
So then,
East Belfast, where I grew up, Glentoran was a club down the end of the street. That's where you went.
right.
But you're talking about whether we want to see the club succeed. I'd like to see a professional football club in my front yard, because that's basically where it is. I'd like to see it succeed. I don't really have a problem with Spanish ownership or Thai ownership or whoever it happens to be. I want enthusiastic, invested ownership. Did they buy this club or invest in this club as a farm to bring players to their club in Spain? Did they do it for bragging rights? Well, we've got a club in the USA. Did they? This is something we're talking about with Marcina leaving. Who gets to pick the team? Are they pushing? We want Samaras to start. We want X, Y, Z. Why? Do they want to watch them and go, okay, Samaras is coming over to us? Or do they have the mindset of, Samaras is a big star, if he plays, we'll sell some shirts with his name on them? Is it a purely financial investment? Limited financial investment?
So one thing that I know about Vallecano and the reason why their fans were so upset in the beginning, I went on the Spanish football show, which covers La Liga, and I think so much of this can be chalked up to the fact that the Rayo Vallecano management is just awful at communication. They do not communicate.
I'm hearing some similar themes.
Their fans, they want to know the same thing. If you don't care to make an e-commerce portal on our website where people all over the world can buy Rayo Vallecano gear, that's fine. It might be fine for them, but then don't tell me. Then tell me why you're going to spend money to start a soccer team in America, because they don't know why. They've never told us why.
If you want to be a global brand, you have to be a global brand.
Right.
But this goes back to my question of why Board of Governors in La Liga? Maybe they were able to push that through. Maybe it's Machiavellian. But then the second check is, why does the NASL let it happen? Unless the NASL is just like, we're going to be a laissez-faire capitalist league, ride or die. These are our principles. We're going to let it happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
A little bit more, and it doesn't have to be completely transparent. Obviously, they're not going to come out and say, "Yeah, we're going to complete the rest of the season and then we're out," because you can't do that. You might as well just do it now. But a little bit more transparency in terms of, this is what we're doing. This is why we started the club. This is why we're cutting costs. This is our goal. I think would have helped ease a lot of issues.
I'll answer my question directly is I want this to be successful. Now, whether it's called Rayo OKC or Oklahoma City FC, I can tell you which one I prefer, but again, it doesn't really matter to me what the ownership makeup is, even if the branding might be confused. But I want it to work. What we're being told on background from well-placed sources is that Rayo Vallecano is committed to year 2. They're focused on year 2. Technically, the on-field product seems to be improving week to week, results aside, right? And now, they're focused on commercially and from a advertising press relations standpoint, focused on formalizing some different processes that might or might not be better, right? So that's the message. So we'll see if they stay on message or not, and then we'll see if staying on message is what keeps this thing alive. Because if it doesn't, then what was the point of the shakeup, right?
Yeah. So one more thing. One thing that you said off pod, Alan, that I wanted to bring on record was the talk of results and style of play for the first 3 games of Gerard Noose's coaching career, his management career, I guess. And obviously some people are upset that the results haven't been better, especially with last night. same stuff, different coach. But to your point, you said if it were that easy to just move some pieces around, it's kind of a slap in the face to Alan Marcina, and assuming that he was too ignorant to see that happen. So you can't just turn it around overnight with the new coach, especially when these players have been training a certain way all season. And my response to that is I agree, but for the majority owner to come in and completely replace the coaching staff in the middle of what was turning into a fairly successful season, I sure hope that they have a grander plan for that. Because they could have just as easily let the team go and possibly have an Alan Marcina coach team make it in the playoffs, and who knows what happens there, and then shut everything down if they wanted to. So it would certainly be disappointing to change everything, have people lose their jobs, and then still pull the rug out from underneath it at the end of the season, which would be a not as successful season, I don't think.
Well, I think they can't fold in mid-season. But, I mean, if you want to fold the club, if they want out, why don't they put the shares up for sale? But, I mean, if they came in and made these changes and went, no, we're done, the club shuts down, I'm assuming just horrendous litigation from every other corner and
we might
field
even
in
get
the league.
sued.
Exactly.
All the vendors, all the
other teams that have played.
Yeah.
Class
Everybody.
action, baby.
Yeah, it'd be a nightmare and bad for the league. So do they want to limp along to the end of the season? Fulfill their legal obligation, and then next year's schedule doesn't have Rayo? Or do they really want to go for it for the 3 years?
Well, you would think that the shakeup is evidence to the latter, right? So, well,
Let's take a quick break, and then I want to run through, try to bullet point the things that we do know, because that's one thing that we kind of skipped over is just we can just blast out the facts, things that we've confirmed in case anybody hasn't read this story or didn't want to take the time to read it.
Cool. All right. Hang tight. We'll do that.
Okay, we're back. Let's quickly run down what we do know. What do we know about the situation the rest of the season? We know that at least that they have a plan in place to play in the next field surface.
Mm-hmm.
So they played on it last night. They have people hired to put it down.
Yep.
You were there watching them put down the last little bit of it. 30 minutes for every strip.
Yeah, it's not a quick thing. I've heard different estimates of 30 man-hours and 18 hours, but they have to have it down and up between high school games. The stadium, from what I've been led to believe, has to look like UConn High School.
So,
with hindsight, maybe that wasn't a smart thing.
Yeah, it was something we definitely liked at first, and we questioned how it was going to work, and now it's... So basically, Alan found out, Will, that if you look at the field from the sideline, right, and there are strips that run parallel with the half line all the way down, each one of those strips to go from touchline to touchline takes 30 minutes to install.
Okay.
And there are... I don't know,
billions of them.
50 on each half of the field or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Which goes against all the rumors early on in the season from different people that it was, a bit of mobile home carpet they threw down with a couple of nails. It's actually a very,
I'm pretty beat down by the next field storyline.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we've talked about off pod, it's just kind of a microcosm of everything that's happening with the team. I mean. It's a huge investment that, according to sources, Sean Jones made personally to provide a good playing surface for them to play on, and the cost of putting it down and taking it up is high. So,
what else do we know?
Well, that comes back before we go on to what you were saying earlier about whether you want the team to succeed or not. Sean Jones put a lot of his money into it. and bought that field knowing exactly how long it would take to lay and lift, but wants to do that. We all watched the New York Cosmos game. It looks like they're playing in an abandoned parking lot. He obviously knew how much it would take and was willing to do that so the players don't break their ankles and come off with terrible injuries. So he wants a team to succeed.
Yeah. No players have been sold. So, whereas our friends down in Fort Lauderdale have sold some very high-profile players to get some quick cash, no players have been sold. There was no problems last night, so far as I could tell, in terms of managing the game day activities.
Was the Canadian national anthem sung correctly?
We played Miami last night, so there was no Canadian national anthem.
So that problem's been resolved.
Unclear. What else?
Well, from the game last night, the first home game since everything went the way it went, food trucks aren't there. Scissortail pub wasn't open. There weren't fireworks when they scored the goal. You know, are these the cost-cutting measures they talked about? Like you said, a lot of people in Rayo Polos, were they volunteers, interns, hired for the night? I mean, you can see certain areas where, yep, they've trimmed a bit of money here and they've trimmed a bit of money there.
So, are you saying those were used polos?
Maybe. One size fits all.
They have to be checked in and checked out.
In terms of the bullet points, I mean, go through all the things that you've read on Twitter.
Yeah.
They're not going to be busing to the games. You know, they're not going to cut player salaries because players are on a fixed contract. You know, there's a streamlining. There's very obviously a streamlining going on.
Okay, so let me put something else in there. One thing we've seen is, I guess they only traveled. I didn't pay attention to this. They only traveled 5 substitutes to the End 11 game. And I've heard rumors that is a pattern that we can plan on seeing it repeat itself. Instead of traveling the full 7 substitutes to away matches, they will only travel 4 or 5 to cut costs. How do you feel about that?
Sounds practical to me. So, I mean, are you really going to play the 6th guy or the 7th guy?
I agree with that. I agree that 7 substitutes is probably too much anyways, but if you can't fill a bench with 7 guys that, as a head coach, that you can see in your mind playing and making a difference in the game, why are they even on the team? Just don't even pay them a salary at all, you know?
Maybe that's the plan, but
It's extremely expensive insurance for injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay to have a practice squad.
I mean, what do you travel? You travel your backup goalkeeper. You have to. You travel 1 backup midfielder, 1 backup defender, and possibly a forward or another midfielder who can play at a forward role.
This is the clear-cut example of the phrase, if you don't use them, you lose them, coming true.
I don't think that's correct. Okay,
It's an
anyways,
age-old adage.
so keep an eye on that as we talk about cost-cutting measures that we've seen. We'll see if that's true or not.
I suppose it depends on your philosophy. If you have an injury or you lose one of your forwards, do you want to keep attacking for the rest of the game? Or do you want to shut down, be defensive, and get home so he can have an MRI on his ankle?
Yeah, and that's not that's not a decision that is primarily driven by what substitutes are on the bench, or like how many substitutes there are. It's driven by what substitutes are on the bench and how's the game been going. So
Right, but
I'm not saying that
it doesn't make any sense to me why you would have to make that decision before you even get on the plane. Like,
Saving one airline ticket.
you should know.
worth it?
Yes, you should know what your game plan is going to be going into the game. But if something happens, or you fly to Fort Lauderdale or Tampa Bay this weekend, and Joe Cole's not supposed to play, but all of a sudden he does, for whatever reason, just like he was supposed to play in the game in UConn, but he didn't. The last thing you want is your head coach turning around and going, I wish we would have brought Rashawn McKenzie with us, because he could have gone out there and bodied him up, and especially if, God forbid, Footy went down or something. Mm-hmm. And so now Footy can't mark Tommy Heineman, so you need another big body to mark Tommy, and then It just
But
doesn't.
isn't that what we were just saying earlier about Marcina? Like, doesn't that make it too simple? Like, the coach could then come up with a tactical scheme.
But he didn't have to make the decision before they even got on the plane. To me, it's easier to pick 7 guys than 5 guys, right? Just like Alan said, it's the cost of a plane ticket and a hotel room to have a little bit of extra insurance against injury and tactical flexibility.
And is that a reflect? If that's what they're doing, I mean, if they're saving 1 seat on the airline and a room in the Best Western, is that cost cutting too far? I mean, that seems like you're really down to the bones at that point.
It's probably not until it is. You know what I mean? Until we get bit by that particular thing. Until that what if comes true, which this season's any indication, it's probably going to. What else? What other bullet points? I mean, I'm just referring people to the midfield press article at this point. Here's a bullet point. Everyone's got an agenda, and they're like, people are sending us Twitter messages left and right, and it's coming from all different perspectives. Well, that's exaggerating it, but I do know that it has been challenging to not get too caught up into the narrative side of things and try to be objective. So,
well, it said in that article that tweets become facts in people's minds. Oh, well, I've read this report and I've heard that, and you need to know about such and such. And off the record stuff, an opinion isn't fact as much as you might wish it was.
Well, let's close with a good old hypothetical.
Well, before we do that,
okay.
The final bullet point of facts that we know, right, is no matter what happens with this club, Sean Jones, the man who brought it here, this is still his baby, right?
All laud and honor due his name.
So, X amount of every dollar spent and earned at that club is his.
Yeah.
Still. So, just like you were saying, everyone has an agenda. No matter what your agenda is, before you decide what you're going to tweet or say, or remember that Sean still has a lot invested in this club. So,
yeah,
it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. It's not like, you know, the majority owner is 100% owner and they're doing whatever they want, and so we can just boycott it and then it'll go away.
Is your dislike and disgust, and by dislike and disgust I mean rampant xenophobia, against the Spanish ownership more important to you than your respect for Sean Jones and his considerable financial investment?
Clearly, yeah. I love being xenophobic.
Yes, well, that's Will put himself on record.
Actually, I hate you. I'm not American.
Well, that's nothing to do with my nationality. It's because you've met me.
America, love it or leave it.
Cheerio! And that's how we wrap up.
Yeah, that is how we should wrap up.
Great. Okay.
That's what it comes down to. Is, like it said in Midfield Press, I genuinely think there are massive cultural differences that people can't get their heads around. But before you decide to jump in and take a side, you need to step back. You need to realize that spreading things on Twitter and going, oh no, this is a fact, it's a microcosm of the world in general. The election campaign, whatever.
And let me just say that I've been guilty of some of that, but it wasn't because they're not Americans. It was because they were asking extremely ignorant questions that showed they know nothing about the business market of second division soccer in America and the geographical limitations and things like that. So agree that, yeah, I mean, don't make it about just the Spaniards, because Sean still has a lot invested in this thing. But I think it's fair to criticize them on, just like we have been, on cost cutting and cutting too far and things like that. So
I think that might have been a failing before with the previous management group, is if you hire a management group that's local, and they did some good things and some things that didn't make any sense, but you have to trust them.
Yeah.
Because they do know how far away Ontario is. You know, they do know what the local market's like. You can't hire local people to build your club. That's what it said in that thing. If you build it, they will come. Whatever word you stress changes it. You have to listen to them. It seems a bit reckless to come in mid-season and go, we're just going to do it this way now.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a suburb of Madrid.
Right.
It'd be a lot cooler if it was.
Okay,
Just kidding.
So that your hypothetical, Will.
Well,
present it.
Do we even want to do it? I guess we have to now.
I think we should.
All right. Let's pretend that Rayo OKC folds, blows up. It's dramatic. People's feelings get hurt. It gets even messier. Scissortail podcast is presented with a compelling M&A opportunity. Do we become the energy podcast?
Okay, let me.
Do we become?
I think
energy
there's
fans?
two. Yeah. I think there's two paths to go down here.
Yeah.
Number one, do we hang up our red shirts in the closet and
I would
take it to Legacy Cleaners and have them preserve it for us as an
Do we
item.
have a ceremonial kit burn?
And then go back and get all of our free energy shirts that we've earned over time and put those
Yes.
back on, our green
Accrued
shirts.
interest.
Yeah,
Accrued
our
interest.
accrued complimentary energy shirts that we've gotten from whenever, and start attending energy games. Me personally, I won't go to every home game, but yeah, I would certainly attend local soccer.
Yeah, I would too.
I mean,
right?
it's better than nothing.
I'm not going to be joining the grid.
No, well, just like we aren't huge members of Rayo's Red Army either,
I'll be chilling on the seat, on the chairs that sit back. I'll have some beers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to those games.
Alan, it's a little bit further drive for you. Would you go?
I don't know. I don't have any particular, the whole background of who owns what and who hates who, and I don't have any desire to.
I'm really
get into
opposed to Fields and Futures, so I'd be clipping $2 less on my tickets.
Going right along with your xenophobia, you hate poor people too.
Wow, it's all coming out now. Isn't
that's
it?
a joke. Yeah, I
But-
am neutral on Fields and Futures.
In terms of going to see energy games, I'd like to go and see local games.
yeah,
It's handy that Rayo plays where it does. Energy's not that far. That's a big thing with some of the energy fans about having to come all the way out to Yukon. It's not Yukon, Canada.
I mean, if I go to,
I'd like to go and see local games. I'd like to see good games.
if I go to an energy game, I know why I'm going, because I want to see the odd local soccer match. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason why, and maybe have beers with my friends who are also going for the same reason.
Some people think that clubs stand and fall on results, and to a certain extent it's true. Leicester sold a lot more shirts last year than they ever have before. But for a real fan, look at me, condescending European. For a fan of the game, you want the game to succeed, but when your team drops down, when your team loses Kevin Durant, when Peyton Manning retires, do you stop following the team? The whole promotion relegation, Pandora's box. You still have fans when you're down in the third division.
Right.
I want Rayo to succeed. They're my local club because they're closer to me. I want Energy to succeed as well. I'd probably go to a game, watch a local match now and again, but I want good football. I want to see players that want to be there. I want to see chances on goal. I want to hear fans singing, not just when the green goes marching in. Green goes. I want the experience of the game.
Right.
And there is definitely a point where it's not better than nothing. Because if the TV deals that you see all over the world have taught us one thing, it's you can watch anything.
Stream it.
We are 1 year at most away from Ronaldo having a GoPro stitched into his head.
Would watch.
Exactly. There are better experiences sitting at home, sadly, watching on TV than watching another 2-0 defeat at home by people who don't want to be
Let the record reflect. Air conditioning, beautiful invention.
wonderous.
All right. Okay, I think that appropriately fleshes out the first thing.
Okay, so the
Second
second thing, as you were saying, there is currently a vacuum for a podcast, fan-run podcast coverage of Energy FC.
I'm ready to answer right now.
Our dear friends at Jimmy's Army have not published an episode since prior to the U.S. Open Cup match.
You're speaking so clearly, considering your tongue is in your cheek.
And so, my question to you is, would we approach it the same way we've approached this and apply for media credentials and be media coverage?
Media-ish.
Semi-professional Energy FC podcasters?
Probably not for me. Probably that's a no. But I would really enjoy the opportunity to more broadly cover soccer in Oklahoma City and in Oklahoma.
I would agree with that. I think what we've found in the last couple of weeks, being what were we called? The senior
soccer correspondents?
The senior soccer correspondents for the brief moment that we were.
Felt good.
It was a beatdown, man.
It was awful.
I would hate to be paid to do it, and I certainly don't want the moral obligation to cover a team week in and week out.
It's a lot of pressure. I've said this to you off the pod, it was a lot of pressure to be the senior soccer journalist.
I would much rather be able to, every other week or just whenever we feel comfortable, just sit down and kind of go over some results. And if we want to do 3 episodes in a week because we have time, great, let's do it. Let's talk about stuff. Let's get people on, talk about soccer in Oklahoma City. If we want to meet for 2 months, great, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're necessarily in a position where you could parachute into the energy and just become their voice.
I think you're underestimating us.
Yeah.
Well, silly me.
I
can turn cloaks faster than Superman in a phone booth.
Yeah, but my press pass says all access. You have to let me in. All right.
I mean, why isn't Jimmy's Army or whatever doing their podcast now?
I don't know. Life got in the way. I don't know. I'm just throwing some shade at them for no reason.
I think that you've kind of hit on a serious point, though.
They'll definitely start recording a week after this podcast.
It's going to be out tomorrow.
Yeah.
All about how Rayo's terrible. You do the podcast and the blog and the becoming a clearinghouse for the news for want of a better phrase, the love of the game. You haven't made any money, and apart from buying a mic, you haven't invested significant amounts of money in the team like Sean Jones has. But you also haven't, the ex-employees, the current employees, the whatever, everybody else has gained financially. The fans that haven't, they're the ones that matter when it comes down to it. And it's not like we're just wonderful angels bringing this incredible podcast to the poor people of Oklahoma that need to hear our opinions. But everybody else was paid. When you're paid, you have to do your job, for good or ill. Will said the other day to somebody that he can come on the podcast and give his opinion, whereas other people can't necessarily because they've taken the king shilling and they have to toe the party line. Is there room for a podcast that covers that from the fan perspective in the Metro? Or would it very quickly become antagonistic? I'd love to see Energy fans sitting around here chirping in. Just have to find some first.
Depends on which ones.
Yeah.
All right.
I would go so far as to say that 98% of them are great people. Just like 98% of Rayo fans, I'm sure, are great people. And
I've heard good things about the green 1/3 of the Oklahoma City.
Just like 98% of the Scissortail podcast, great people.
Yes.
This is damn pinky finger. All right.
Great episode. It's good to be back on the saddle. We didn't take any McNelly's free food or drink, but
I was just going to say, I'm not a professional sports team franchise organizer, but you might want to shout out to McNelly's.
Yeah, if you've listened this far, then yeah, definitely come to McNelly's.
They'll sell you beer and food.
They do. They're good at that.
And
you might even get some discounted depending on what time of day you're here.
Today is Sunday, August 21st. Pint night tomorrow night is the Founders. It's something. I can't pronounce it. It's got an umlaut in it. And what's the A and E that are like touching each other? It's a nitro.
Robaus. Close enough.
And then a week from tomorrow is the Big Sky Trout Slayer.
All right,
that is a good beer.
Delicious beer.
And the Beer Geek special for the
It
week.
was also Will's nickname in college.
I'm not mentioning that.
The Beer Geek special this week is the Castile Cuvée de Chateau.
All right.
For $7.
You heard it here first.
Thanks to McNelly's for having us out.
Thanks for listening. At Scissortail Pod, scissortailpod@gmail.com.
We'll get a new pinned tweet up with some recording times.
Which we'll then ignore.
Which we will then hope that the team doesn't absolutely dash our schedule.
If we get news from Spain, no, that's not going to work, fellas.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. See you. Bye.
Goodbye.